Hello there, welcome to Blitz Transmissions. I'm Tommy. Now, this video was originally going to be an episode of the After Action Figure Report. However, I have been mulling over it and, pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. And then finally, I'll give a shout out to Imperial Communique on YouTube. I watched his video where it was him just sitting down talking about it. And I'm sure you saw by the thumbnail and the title what we're going to be talking about in this video. So I decided, you know what? I think this better fits how I feel about this right now, feelings around the situation, around the state of the community right now, and I wanted to put my voice in there and throw my hat in the ring. As of late, I have been kind of the mouthpiece of the younger generation of collectors, the prequel trilogy Clone Wars kids, so I kind of wanted to throw my hat in the ring here. So this, obviously, let's not beat around the bush, there was a lot of controversy, probably the most angry I've seen Star Wars collectors collectively in a long time, like several years. I think the last time there was this much outrage might have been with the HasLab Rancor that the Black Series did a few years ago. This has surrounded the price error of the vintage collection INT-4 Interceptor and Imperial Remnant Warlord vehicle set that Hasbro revealed at San Diego Comic-Con at the end of July and went up for pre-order this past Thursday. This video is going to be a lot less edited than a lot of my other videos. I feel like I did a video about this a little over a year ago where something titled like, is Star Wars collecting too expensive or are collectors just broke? And I feel like a lot of the points that I made in that video after I watched it back to kind of do my homework for this one, and I have off screen a whole list of bullet points I wrote out. I don't know how long this is going to be. This might end up just being a Blitzcast episode of sorts where it's just a really long-winded thing where I'm speaking from the heart, just being honest. But it's something that I think needs discussed, and I think there's lots of facets to it. There's a lot of contributing factors here from different parties and, different people with different motivations. And so I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and speak my mind a bit. So let me give a couple disclaimers for this video. The first one is that I have been collecting Star Wars in some way, shape, or form for pretty much my entire life. I obviously collected Star Wars toys as a kid, those to include everything from the Power of the Force 2, which my dad was collecting and then passed on to me when I was born in 2000, and then I collected all the prequel trilogy toy lines, the Clone Wars toy lines. Some of my favorites are the animated Clone Wars line, which ran from 2008 to 2013, and the 30th anniversary line, which came out obviously for the 30th anniversary of Star Wars in 2007. When I was in high school, I was very into Star Wars Legos, and that kind of bled into college. I got into Funkos, and then when I was about 19 years old, I started to get really heavily as an adult back into the Star Wars toys, and those are obviously the Black Series line, the 6-inch line, and the 3 3/4 line vintage collection. So I have been collecting. I'm not brand new to the game just because I've been, heavily collecting the vintage collection specifically for the last year or so. That doesn't mean that, I'm new to the game and I haven't done my homework on the history of the importance of Star Wars toys. In addition to that, I want to give another disclaimer. These are my takes. These are my opinions, and I'm going to share them with you very unapologetically in this video. And I feel like there's going to be a couple points in this video where I'm quite blunt, because I'm feeling pretty burned out with some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about in this video, some of the talking points, and I don't feel like I really need to sugarcoat some of this. So if this video offends you, one, I'm not sorry because I'm being honest with what I'm saying, and two, if you're offended by what I'm saying, then you're probably the kind of person that I'm talking about. So maybe take a moment to self-reflect if you're getting offended by what I'm saying. Because, again, some of these things that I'm going to talk about in this video, I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks here. And I kind of want to lay out the situation at hand and then talk about it a bit more broadly and a bit more broadly as we get into the depths of this conversation here. And then finally, of course, if you do disagree with me, if you agree with me, please comment. Let's talk respectfully to one another like adults, like civilized folk know how to do, or I like to believe they know how to do. This last week or so has made me question that. I hope that we can have a conversation, have a discourse, maybe seek to understand one another, because this is obviously, some of this stuff is how I feel. Some of this stuff is how I'm perceiving the situation, and some of this stuff I would love to hear another perspective on. So feel free to provide it if you would like to. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's give some context, and I'm going to actually include the Black Series in this one as well for some of my talking points. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video, this whole situation that has the Star Wars collecting community in an uproar, in a rage, more so than really I've ever seen in the last, several years of collecting and paying attention to the online forums and stuff like I have, had to do with a press release that was put out in tandem with some of the Hasbro Star Wars San Diego Comic-Con reveals, which, like I mentioned earlier, were revealed at San Diego Comic-Con. Hello! And so one of them was for the Vintage Collection, the INT-4 Interceptor and Imperial Remnant Warlord from the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which came out this year. Now, if you don't know what the INT-4 is, its original design was a mini rig. Mini rigs were kind of these smaller playsets and vehicles that were made to be more affordable for children who were playing with the Kenner toys, and maybe mom and dad didn't necessarily have the money to get them the Millennium Falcon or the AT-AT or some of the big, main centerpiece items for the Kenner toy line. So instead, you would get a mini rig. So not only were a lot of the veteran Star Wars fans that have been around since the very beginning excited to see this vehicle in the movie, they were equally as excited, if not even more, to see a modern, highly detailed, amazing sculpt, lots of paint apps on the newest version, the screen accurate version of the INT-4 that we saw in the movie this year. And of course, that also includes the Imperial Remnant Warlord, aka Commander Barro. Now, the original press release that came out for this vehicle was saying that it was $51.99, and I remember myself and so many other people going, wow, that is a great deal for what you're getting. A small vehicle in 3 3/4. I mean, for reference, the Ore and Picador set, which came out earlier this year, the Geonosian Picador, that was about $80, $79.99. So this being $51.99 was a huge surprise to everyone. Everyone was overjoyed about it, and all of the official pages that get all of the press releases from Hasbro were reporting this same MSRP. Similarly, for the Black Series got a Mandalorian and Grogu vehicle set of their own, that being the Imperial Remnant AT-RT driver and AT-RT. And now this vehicle set was revealed by StarWars.com on the Wednesday before San Diego Comic-Con, and in the article, the MSRP was listed as $67.99, which again had lots of fans super excited because this was the same price as the Vintage Collection AT-RT, and while it did seem a little weird that they were the same price, I think a lot of us were going, the Black Series one doesn't have the articulated stand or the blast effect that the TVC one has, so maybe that was how they kind of balanced out the cost on the two and got us that lower price point. Now again, these press releases had these prices everywhere. And for the INT, the verbiage for it was also including, quote, participating retailers, which a lot of people assumed means fan channel. If you don't know what fan channel is, it's essentially just online toy retailers like Big Bad Toy Store or Entertainment Earth. So the press releases were put out, I want to say July 25th or July 26th was when I really started seeing them everywhere on websites, like Jedi Insider. You had all these news pages reporting it. Everybody was getting the same information. And I remember commenting on shows like the Sarlacc Digest Toy Chest that I'm a co-host on every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, that we were very excited about these prices. These were surprisingly low in a time where prices keep, climbing and climbing in the collecting community. And weeks went by, we were anticipating these pre-orders to come out on August 13th, and August 13th came around, and I log into Big Bad Toy Store at 1 p.m., and, oh, hey, there's no listing for the INT or the AT-RT. All right, maybe they got the day wrong, or they're just a little late, because Hasbro press releases, as I'll talk about in a minute, have been a little bit consistently incorrect in 2026. Now, I went over to Hasbro Pulse because I went, okay, maybe it's on Hasbro Pulse, and I saw that it was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, which they did not say in the press release, and also that it was exclusive to Hasbro Pulse Premium member holders for the first hour. That is pretty typical nowadays with the Hasbro Pulse releases. I'm a Pulse Premium member myself. Call me a shill, I don't care. That's just, I like to have it because it saves me on shipping throughout the year. I think I make enough orders on Hasbro Pulse in a year's time that it does pay for itself and saves me quite a bit of money. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll order it on Hasbro Pulse, whatever. And then I saw the prices on these listings, and the INT and the AT-RT were $79.99. Now, the ATRT, you could kind of justify that, even though it was a $12 jump from what was originally advertised as the price, it was still, consistent with the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive version of the ATRT, which was from the Clone Wars, and that one was running for $80. This was running for $80. That's pretty consistent across the board. Then you look at the INT, and this is what really kind of sparked this huge outcry from the collecting community. The INT was $28 higher in MSRP than was originally advertised. That's more than a 50% increase in what the price was originally supposed to be as advertised. So a lot of fans were very, very, very disappointed. And I was having conversations with many collectors that I talked to, many people in my inner circles that were saying, yeah, I was going to buy a couple of these. I think I'm out now because that is such a huge price jump. And so then people start getting, thinking a little bit more. They're like, okay, well, maybe this is a mistake. Maybe because both are listed as the same price, there was some sort of pricing error through Hasbro Pulse. So people started to inquire from Hasbro, hey, what's going on? And unfortunately, that falls to the people that are very front-facing as being active in the community and, being Hasbro employees, such as Steve Evans, who is in charge of design for both Star Wars and Marvel at Hasbro, and people like Brandon, aka Hero Collections, who is the lead marketer for Hasbro Star Wars right now. So what ends up happening? Everybody is just flooding these comment sections, flooding everything, tagging these guys, saying, what is going on with these prices? Because again, and in my opinion, rightfully so, the community was flabbergasted. We had been misinformed for weeks. This press release had come out and said the price of this item. Everyone was talking about how excited they were about said price being so low compared to what we were probably expecting, which was closer to $80, and nothing ever got changed. It was completely overlooked, and then boom, now it's $80. And unfortunately, this is where my frustration lies with Hasbro right now, is how they chose to handle the situation. Now, let me make it abundantly clear, and this is going to get into a point later in the video as well. I think that it is absolutely ridiculous and asinine to think that the Star Wars brand team has the power or the ability to, snap their fingers like they're these magical wizards that can just make things happen and make all the problems go away and adjust the MSRPs and do things like that. They can't. It's the unfortunate reality. They just can't. And a lot of these things like deciding MSRP are way above the brand team's heads. This is something they don't even have a say in at the end of the day. So they're kind of just a lot of this goes into budget. A lot of this has to do with, again, all stuff that really doesn't have anything to do with the brand team. However, Steve Evans came out on his social media, which has since been deleted now, Mr. Stevie18, saying to people replying in comment sections that it was an error. And he kept saying, sorry for the confusion. He can't really say much else regarding the situation. However, that left people even more frustrated because it's a very limited response. And I get that he was trying to give a response, but people were becoming even more frustrated with that. And then, of course, Hasbro's suits and bean counters and PR decided that the best solution to the problem would be what they always do, which is do nothing, say nothing. And that left fans unheard, it left them frustrated, and it really left them feeling like they don't matter. Okay, that's a huge part of the issue, is the fans feeling like they don't matter. In addition to this, and I can't really comment on international pricing and how international economics work too much, just because for me personally, I'm a United States citizen. I have no knowledge. I'm not an economist. I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know how this kind of stuff works. I can speak very limited on it. But what was really frustrating people was then our friends across the pond over in the UK and in Spain, and our friends up to the north in Canada were looking at their MSRPs for their prices, and they were like, wait a minute, let's do some conversions here. This isn't adding up. So for some reason in the United States, the INT-4 was listed at $80. And then if you convert it in the UK, for some reason it was $112. And then if you converted it in Canada, it was only $55, which was much closer to the original price that was advertised on the press release. So not only do you have a price that is not accurate to the original press release, you have pricing that is for the same item all over place in different regions of the world. So through all of this that happened on that day on August 13th, the fandom was left in complete disarray. And there are those, I'll get into this later, that are very good at preying upon people's honest frustrations. And now we have a situation that has ballooned and blown up into something way bigger than it needed to be. And a lot of that is what contributed to me feeling like I needed to make a dedicated video on this topic with my thoughts, as opposed to just talking about it on Sarlacc Digest Toy Chest. So before I get into these points that I'm going to be making that you may not agree with, I think there are a couple things that we can all agree on. My first thing here is that I am very frustrated at the whole situation. Obviously, I don't know many people that would be excited for, you know, seeing that something's going to be one price and then seeing that it's, you know, a 50% increase about in the price when it shows up on the market. And then you have to make the decision on the spot. Well, do I want to buy this or do I not want to buy this? So I'm definitely with the fans on the frustration. I am frustrated about this situation. I also understand the fans' disappointment in Hasbro in this. And I have to say, I'm disappointed in how Hasbro handled this myself. Choosing to do nothing at all and, you know, relegating everything to just, oh, it's just toy trolls. Oh, they'll shut up eventually. They'll forget about it eventually. The do nothing, say nothing approach was not the right move here. And then what really made it worse was you had the brand team ended up being these like sacrificial lambs that everybody went to and was being very, very nasty to, and, you know, taking out their emotions in a very immature way. And it really felt like in the moment we were angry at the wrong people, and there were people that were encouraging us to be angry at the wrong people on social media. And so I ended up posting that night the clip from Andor. It had crossed my mind. I was thinking like, oh man, like this is exactly that, where Cassian is talking to Kino Loy in the Narkina 5 prison, and he keeps saying, nobody's listening. They don't care. Nobody's listening. And this is just how it is, the feeling that it leaves you with the big wigs at Hasbro, the people that are in control of the MSRP. They don't care if you're going to buy it or not. They set the MSRP, and either you're going to buy it or you're going to put up or shut up. They don't care. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about the money. And this is where corporate greed becomes an issue, because in my opinion, if Hasbro wanted to do right by the community, they should have, you know, set the price down to the $51.99. That's my opinion. And I think you would have had a lot more people that were very happy and felt like they were heard and understood, because it was Hasbro's mistake. It's not like the price was always advertised for $80 and then it got put up for $80 and people were like, that's too much. That's it. I quit. That I have a totally different mindset toward. You know, you can have the opinion that stuff is too expensive, but if that's the MSRP that they set from the beginning and they advertised from the beginning, I guess tough, you know, like, I guess don't buy it then or wait for a sale. But with something like this, it was their mistake from the beginning. They had definitely a long enough time to correct it with the multiple weeks between the press release coming out and the actual pre-order date of the item, and it was overlooked the whole entire time. So that is where my frustration and my disappointment in Hasbro lies on this situation. Is they really did not do right by the fans. From beginning to end, from front to back, they did not do right by the fans on this one. And that makes me sad, because I love these toys. I love collecting, clearly. And this is one of those few times where I really felt a little bit downtrodden, you know, just looking at how frustrated everyone was, and nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. So all that to say, those wrap up my thoughts on the INT-4. I will tell you right out the gate, I did end up still pre-ordering one, because it's my money. I'm going to choose how to spend it. You can choose to have the opinion that I spent my money stupidly, but I think that we can all take a step back and look at the things in our rooms and our displays and everything and go, maybe all of this was a giant waste of money, because it's not food, water, shelter, or clothing. It's not any of my basic needs, so maybe I'm not going to judge others on what they spend their money on, and maybe you shouldn't judge me. But you're free to regardless. But yes, I did end up pre-ordering one, so I do want to make that abundantly clear that that is my stance. I'm being totally transparent here. I got nothing to hide. You're going to see a review of it. You're going to see a live stream where I open it up. When it comes in, it's going to be like any other toy that I buy for my collection. I thought it was cool. Am I happy that it's $80? No, but ultimately things happen, and if they're saying that it was supposed to be $80, then, you know, call me a shill. I ended up pre-ordering one. So this is the part of the video that really made me feel like I had to really write down my thoughts, organize them, and gather them up. Because if I didn't, I feel like it would just be rambly and I wouldn't have an organized process to this. So there's a big however in like 6 asterisks next to, you know, I understand and I agree with the frustration, the disappointment, and the lack of response. All that to say, with the big however in a big, you know, flashing red neon sign, this is no reason to have this burn it all down mentality that I've been seeing in the collecting community since then. Now, I will say this, to give context to that, this has been something that I've been talking about on my channel since SDCC. I've been seeing a lot of, as my dad, Commander Bly, would call them, dusty, crusty unks. I will call them veteran collectors or seasoned collectors, those who typically grew up with the original trilogy. They have been very, very unhappy with the offerings at San Diego Comic-Con, to, the response to some of the reveals at the press breakfast, especially for San Diego Comic-Con, to, things like the INT-4. The response has been a lot more, like, it feels like very personal to these guys, and I could, maybe I just don't get it, because I've been collecting for maybe half that time that they've been collecting. They've been collecting for almost 50 years. I would say in some way, shape, or form, I've been collecting my entire life, and I'm 25, so maybe I just don't get it. But as a grown man, I do feel like it is a little bit, it makes me maybe furrow my brow a bit, if you will, as to why they feel so personally attacked when things like this happen. And it's like all logic and reason go out the window. So I've been seeing, Star Wars pages, collecting pages, and the like. I've been seeing people say to boycott Hasbro and making, very, I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it what it is, AI slop of, these posters, boycott Hasbro, stop buying the product. I've been seeing people calling out to quit the hobby, or making, very passive-aggressive little cringe posts on their pages where they post a little black square and they say, like, I have to really consider, Hasbro's really hurting my feelings right now. I have to consider what I want to do with this hobby. I've been seeing people in my own community that are saying, in comment sections, I've canceled all my pre-orders. I called and I canceled my HasLabs. I'm like, whoa, this is where I take a step back and I'm like, are we blowing this out of proportion? Yes, we are. Like, that is the short answer. We are, as a community, we have taken this frustration and we've blown it way out of proportion. And I think that it has a lot to do with something that I've been talking about a lot on my channel, and that is, to quote Monsters, Inc., the winds of change, as Randall says. It is something that I've been talking about. We are in completely uncharted territory with the Star Wars collecting hobby right now, because what I'm noticing is that pretty much almost all of the people that have been getting very vocally upset with Hasbro as of the last couple weeks, whether they're unhappy with character selection, or they're unhappy with the releases or the prices, you name it, a lot of them, most of them, are from the original trilogy generation. Simultaneously, I'm noticing that my generation, the prequel and Clone Wars generation, is coming out and saying that 2026 is probably the best year of character selection we've ever had, and we're saying that for Black Series and for the Vintage Collection. So that's kind of where I'm noticing a little bit of a disparity in the generations here, unless, of course, you're like my dad, you're like plenty of other people that I talk to who are of the original trilogy generation and also do enjoy the prequels and the Clone Wars. There's a difference here. None of these things I'm talking about are absolutes. None of these, because only a Sith deals in absolutes. So, a lot of these situations, like, I'm making generalizations, but it's how the trends lie. I'm drawing conclusions based on my observations, and I will observe probably thousands of Star Wars collectors' comments from Facebook to X to Instagram to TikTok to YouTube to forums. It's all over the place, in all generations and all different things. So I've been noticing the trend tends to be older collectors that have been around for a lot longer than us younger guys are fed up with the hobby. They're fed up with everything. They're personally offended by everything. And, they're saying that this is the worst Star Wars toys have ever been. The hobby's dying. Where meanwhile, you have an influx of newer collectors coming in, and it's like this passing of the torch. And I talked about it on my channel a couple weeks ago on the Blitz cast, that, it's probably not going to be nice because, some of these people feel like they have some weird ownership over the hobby. But it is something that is still worth talking about. In addition to that, I've also been seeing a lot of collectors attacking and personally belittling individual team members at Hasbro Star Wars, again, particularly Steve Evans and Brandon. I've been seeing a lot of just like volleys of insults thrown at these people. That is a quick way to either get blocked or have your feedback fall on deaf ears. So I'm going to come out and say the things that I mentioned: boycotting Hasbro, quitting the hobby, canceling your orders and pre-orders, and attacking and belittling the brand team, all of these are wrong answer. This hobby is supposed to be something fun. It's supposed to be something that brings us joy. And what I can't wrap my head around is how one release, or even a handful of releases that you're not excited about or you're frustrated about, whether it be the price, the exclusivity of the item, if it's a limited item, if it's not done the way you wanted it to be, maybe something that comes out isn't this other thing that you were hoping it was going to be, why that's any reason to have this burn it all down nihilistic mentality to the hobby. I've been noticing as of late, especially with the fast-paced energy and vibe of social media, that we're always looking to the horizon as a community. We've stopped taking a step back and appreciating what we have now. I've been there, other collectors have been there, and it kind of ebbs and flows as time goes on. I know I've had times where I've been ranting on live streams and videos of my own where I'm like, why hasn't Hasbro done this yet? Why did they do this that way? I don't understand this. But at the same time, I can always sit back and look at my collection that I have. This is my joy. This is my joy because guess what? As adults, we deal with all the real hardships of life, whether it be bills or deaths in the family or hardship in losing and gaining friendships. We fall into different relationships. We fall through different struggles financially, emotionally, all throughout our lives. And this is one of those things that should be like a constant. It should be a pretty consistent thing that brings you joy. And when the hobby develops into something that makes you nothing but frustrated and miserable all the time, I think it might be time to take that step back and ask yourself, am I really still enjoying this hobby? Do I really think I should still be a part of it? I think we as a fandom seem to be forgetting what brought us into this hobby, why we love this hobby so much. And, again, not to keep bringing up Imperial Communique on YouTube, I loved his video that he made, just pretty much probably within 24 hours of this coming out, because I literally just watched it before I sat down here. It is a childhood love for toys and or a childhood love for Star Wars. I'm listening to Imperial Communique give that right at the beginning of his video. He says right out the gate, I said it in my video without even realizing, like, you get these toys as a kid and you gain this attachment to them. That is something so uniquely Star Wars, that the toys are this integral pillar to the identity of the IP. There aren't a lot of IPs out there that have been able to successfully do that, and there have been a lot that have tried to replicate what Star Wars has, but Star Wars, it is so unique to the experience of being a Star Wars fan. And again, it can come in different shapes and sizes, with Star Wars action figures, Star Wars Lego, Star Wars books, Star Wars props, Star Wars items. There's all kinds of different ways that this can show up and develop, but I think it's a commonality that we all have. We have these memories attached to these action figures that we had. We have these ideas attached to these characters, and it compels us to want to collect as adults. I think a lot of fans are forgetting why we were so passionate about this hobby in the first place. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't be constructively critical of things, just as much as I think you should praise things when they do something right. I do think that we should offer constructive criticism when we don't like something. I'll be the first to say, not a fan of the Kenner Colors X-Wing that TVC put out, not a fan of the Embo and Kibu 2-pack for Black Series that ended up being $60, again, very similarly to the INT. I don't see how $28 of additional $32 of additional value come in a bigger empty box and an articulated animal, which is, I guess nowadays, the price of a full figure. These are releases that I was not a fan of at all, but guess what? I still ended up pre-ordering the Embo set because I wanted it, and I don't plan on pre-ordering the X-Wing because it's just not for me. It doesn't fit my collection anyway. But when I articulate how I talk about those things, I can do it in a calm and prudent way, whereas I've been seeing this just outrage culture that seems to have swallowed up social media. People love to get the clicks on, oh, what are they going to say? Oh, they're going to be mad too. And it's this weird call to action that a lot of pages, I think that I implore the Star Wars collecting community to be mindful of this, there are pages out there that are 100% preying upon your feelings about something so that they can grow their social media. They don't actually have the opinion that you have. They don't actually care like you care. They just want to be talking about the hot button item, the hot button topic, so that they can get clicks and likes on their videos. And you know what? More power to you if you want to do that. But to let those people influence you so deeply that you'll make these knee-jerk decisions as a collector, like calling and canceling a HasLab, that's not something you can undo. That's not something, now if the HasLabs come in and you get that FOMO, this thing that you paid for a year ago, you can't get that back. Now you have to pay extra for it on eBay. So it's one of those where I think you need to be mindful about when things frustrate you. There's a wise Jedi that says, your focus determines your reality. And that Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, was exactly right. And this is one of those situations where I think we need to be very mindful as a community of how we are going to progress moving forward. Because I'll just say right now, I am just as disappointed in the community's outrage about and how community members have handled this as I am in Hasbro's lack of response to the situation. Two wrongs don't make a right, and swinging all the way to the other side of one pendulum doesn't justify your actions when you're not satisfied when the pendulum's on the other side. And on this train of thought, again, I just want to reiterate the point I made earlier. Do not let releases that frustrate you, or even a handful, like not even just one single release, because I know for some people, it's like, okay, the deluxe TVCs are now $27.99, and oh, now the INT is $80, now this, now that, and this release was supposed to be a fan channel, they advertised it as that, and now it's a Pulse exclusive. If it's frustrating you, don't burn it all down. Don't become the very thing you swore to destroy, which is a hater of the toys that you've loved so much your entire life. There's so much in my present collection that I can enjoy, and I know that for everybody watching that's a collector, there's stuff in your collection that you enjoy, but again, we can get so lost on what's coming next, what's coming next, what's coming next, what's the next wave, what's the next HasLab, what's a pipeline, that we get lost in what we have. And we lose sight of the joy that what we have brings us. Last couple points I want to make on this. First one, I know some of you guys are not going to want to hear this, but I think it definitely needs to be said. And this kind of comes back to that point I've been making on my channel. I made it earlier in this video about the passing of the torch. Star Wars has changed. The collecting community is actively changing. We are, as I said, in uncharted waters right now. We have never been in a position where the prequel generation, the Clone Wars generation, has now successfully reached the great Daryl Dupree's 20-year rule, where you start to gain nostalgia because actually, contrary to what some will tell you, because you have real money now as an adult, you will start to, have an affinity for the things you grew up with, and you're going to want to put a lot of financial resources into feeding that childlike wonder that I mentioned earlier, the childhood experience that you yearn for as an adult when you're in the real world and everything sucks. So Star Wars is changing. The things that the community want are changing. And in addition to that, the world is changing. I see a lot of people make the point that the INT used to be $5 back in the day. Well, guess what, man? This INT is extremely more detailed in sculpt and paint in every single way than the mini rig INT from the Kenner days. In addition to that, too, this one includes a figure, and the figures nowadays, yes, a 3 3/4 figure is a $20 figure, and I know people get shell-shocked by that price, but I know that my dad has said it, I know I've said it, I know plenty of people have said it. Go ahead and just pick up a modern TVC figure that has come out in 2026 and compare it to a figure from 20 years ago. The way that these figures articulate, how naturally they move, the kinds of posing that you can do with them, how good the sculpts are now compared to 20 years ago, it's night and day. It can't be argued. And with that comes a higher cost of production process. I'm not going to sit here and say that I know the specific number that it should be. I'm not going to sit here and say that specifically the $19.99 price point is the sweet spot, but I am saying that it's unrealistic to think that everything should be the same price that it was back in the 1980s, because the process of how they're put together is completely different. The cost to put them together is completely different. Everything is so much more detailed than it was, and it's so much more geared toward an adult audience than it was back in the 1980s. So the collecting community, the landscape is changing. I see a lot of older collectors saying, oh, the hobby's dying. It's really not. We're seeing a resurgence in interest for not just action figures in general, but specifically the 3 3/4 scale, because many people, myself included, have gotten heavily into it. You could look at some of my videos. Not even 12 months ago, this entire display was all Black Series behind me. Black Series only takes up about half of that now, and the rest has been filled up by 3 3/4. And I'm getting so many vintage collection figures nowadays because I'm playing catch up on older stuff that I didn't pick up, and I'm picking up all these new figures. I've picked up almost everything that's come out in 2026, by the way, that I keep having to find more shelf space and buy more shelves to fit my rapidly growing TVC collection. So this hobby is changing. The things that people want are changing. And I think that this passing of the torch should be a happy thing. It should be something that excites the veteran collectors, because growing the hobby means and equates to the potential for us to grow our community and everybody getting something that they want. We're sitting around a campfire. We should be welcoming those to join in the warmth that this hobby brings us, instead of trying to extinguish the fire and push people away or toss people into the flames. Let's just sit around, share stories, and share experiences together, as opposed to tearing each other down and trying to have this gatekeepy mentality where we're putting this incoming generation down. And it reminds me a lot of what was going on back in the 2000s with the prequel trilogy coming out. And my final point that I really, really want to drive home here is, guys, you're not sticking it to the man like you think you are by quitting the hobby and selling your collection and canceling all your orders. You're just going to make yourself miserable. John Paul Hasbro and the suits and the bean counters over at Hasbro, you're not even a blip on their radar. The best way that you can decide whether or not you want to make a statement is to vote with your wallet. If you don't like a release, don't buy it. I know that a lot of people are trying to break this mentality of being a completionist. That is something I agree with. I think you should buy what you want for your collection. I think you should buy what makes you happy. And if a release doesn't make you happy, then you shouldn't buy it. There have been plenty of releases that have come out in 2026 and in all my years of collecting that I just don't have an attachment to. And I don't buy it. Because if I don't have an attachment to it, I don't need it. If it doesn't mean something to me, I don't need it. If it's not a character that one of my close friends gets really excited about, I'm not going to buy it. Because then it's just a thing on a shelf, and it becomes a chore. If this hobby becomes a chore, if it becomes an obligation, if it becomes anything other than what it's supposed to be, which is making you remember that you're a kid on Christmas morning or on Easter or on your birthday, or maybe you even just got to go to the store and mom and dad let you pick out a toy at KB Toys or Walmart or Target or Toys R Us or wherever it is, and you got to pick out that toy and bring it home on the rainy day. That is what this hobby is about. That's what it was always meant to be about. And Hasbro is not trying to, let me rephrase, the Hasbro Star Wars brand team is not trying to ruin that joy for you. They are trying to make things that give you that feeling. And it's not always going to land. And as Master Yoda says in one of the least favorite Star Wars movies for many people, The Last Jedi, but it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise, Yoda says to Luke, the greatest teacher failure is. And it's through failure that we learn and become better people. And that's why it's one of my most favorite lessons in all of Star Wars, because I have had to experience that myself many times in my life, and I'm sure I'll experience it many more. So my final point here, again, I want to reiterate the Qui-Gon quote, speaking of Jedi, that I really look up to and I find really wise. Your focus determines your reality. Yes, this is a frustrating situation. I think everybody should voice their opinion. But I think it's all equally as important, if not more, to think about how you voice your opinion. Because we have the power as a community to change the landscape. And we've seen it this year with the influx of collectors. There are so hundreds and hundreds of Black Series collectors that are turning their heads toward TVC with the awesome releases we've had this year. And they're messaging me every single day, emailing me saying, Tommy, I'm buying TVC for the first time ever. This is because of the excitement. This is because they're making things that appeal to these fans. And let's not lose sight of that. Let's rally together as a community rather than make this a point where it's the people versus Hasbro. Let's celebrate what each other wants. And of course, again, I think the vast majority of people are passing on this INT because of the price. And the message will come across to Hasbro. They will get it. That's when the suits and the bean counters will pay attention. Vote with your wallet. But don't discourage others from voting with their wallet how they want to. That's something that I think that our society, here in America specifically, has really fallen into a bad habit of. We try to tell each other how to vote. If you do this, if you vote this, then you are this. If you pick this, then you are this. And I hate that if-then mentality. Let's make it a yes-and mentality. Yes, I'm passing on this, and I'm still excited for those people who are getting it. That's how I feel about the Kenner X-Wing. Yes, I think it's a frustrating release. It's not something that I want. And I'm also excited for those around me that are excited about it, because there are those that are excited for it. So at the end of the day, though, it's going to come down to what Hasbro sees on the sales numbers, and that's how these things are supposed to shake out. Vote with your wallet. But at the same time, I think we need to remember that we're adults in this situation. I know we collect toys, but we're adults, and we should be able to articulate ourselves as such. So that's it. I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I'm sure when I edit this, I'll watch it back, and I'll be like, oh, and you forgot this, and this. Oh, you could have brought this up, could have brought that up. But that is just the nature of, I tried my best. I wrote my notes down, and that's all that I have to say on this topic. So guys, please don't let this destroy your enjoyment of the hobby. We have so much to talk about in this hobby, so much to look forward to, and I really think that a handful of bad releases or releases that you're not happy about shouldn't determine whether or not you decide if you're going to continue in this hobby or not. There's so much that everyone can contribute to this hobby, and the whole goal of this is to grow the hobby. We want this to pass on to the next generation, and if all we're doing is being miserable, people looking from the outside in are going to go, yeah, I'm not joining that hobby. I'm not contributing to this conversation. So let's welcome people to the campfire and sing our campfire song. Let me know if you get that reference. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got this far, I really do appreciate it. Please consider commenting, subscribing, join my Discord, social media, everything, and make sure to check out the Sarlacc Digest Toy Chest on every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Sarlacc Digest YouTube channel. I'm sure we'll be unpacking this topic on that show as well. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you for the next one, and as always, may the Force be with you.
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. 1-2, pick your targets. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?